Hey, so welcome everybody, and I got a question for you. Is President Biden curing COVID overnight? What is President Biden's COVID relief bill? What are the Republicans' response to it? And how is President Biden doing on healing the fractured Washington? All of that on today's episode. My name is Jonathan Hewitt, and this is the Conservative Voice Show. So, will President Biden bring unity to Washington and the rest of the nation? Let me know down in the comments below what you think, if you think that he will or you think that he won't, and why. So, during the presidential campaign, we all remember the statements made by President Biden, then the Democratic nominee, Biden, that he would somehow end COVID-19, because I remember that. And if you haven't or you forgot about it, here he is.
And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
All right, so there he is. That's him in the flesh saying that he was going to be the end of it. Well, January 22nd of this year rolls around, the day after 2 days after he's inaugurated, and he says there's nothing that his administration can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. Seems like he may have just lied just a little wee bit in the debates. But let's just ignore all of that. Let us take a look at what he's actually sort of doing that's not actually an executive order and may actually have real, I guess you could say, like positive impact. Maybe, not really. But the first thing that he's actually done for COVID, I should say, because he's signed numerous executive orders that have had lackluster effect and zero effect on actual COVID-19. So the first one is his $1.9 trillion bill, right? That he was going to, that he proposed, and then that the Republicans then countered. So this plan is going to do a lot of things, okay? For those of you that don't know, is that this plan is going to be the first one where he's going to have to try to talk across the aisle, and it's going to set the stage for a lot of his presidency, right? Either A, he's going to be the strong Democrat that the progressives want, and that he's not going to bow down to the Republicans and become bipartisan, and that he's just going to do what the Democrat Party wants, or he's going to be that person of unity, reach across the aisle, try to work in a bipartisan manner, and then end up with some kind of mutual agreement across the aisle for COVID-19. So either one, he becomes bipartisan and works with Republicans and does what's best for America, and then face the backlash of his caucus, which I don't think that's what he's going to do at all. Or he's going to be that strong-headed and just going to do what the Democrat Party wants and only what they want and just ignore the millions of other Americans. All right, so what is this plan? He's dubbing it the American Rescue Plan. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so what is it? I'm going to read it to you guys, and then I'll read to you what what the Republicans have. We'll compare it, we'll talk about it, talk about some key issues, some things that we're seeing, some things that not a lot of people are happy about, and then we'll move on to the next portion, all right? So, what is this American Rescue Plan? Well, let's get to it. He's going to put $1,400 stimulus checks to Americans, which, coupled with the $600, will make the $2,000 stimulus promise that he originally won, which a lot of Americans, just from surfing social media and things like that, say, no, you promised me $2,000. I want my $2,000 stimulus. Now, I guess in a roundabout kind of way, they're getting their $2,000, but that's not what they want. They want $2,000 on top of the $600 they already had. All right. He's also increasing he wants to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is kind of a joke. I don't think he understands that raising income is going to raise goods and services, right? Like, you make businesses pay their employees more. The only way they're going to make that up is if they raise their prices to combat it, right? Also, he wants to increase the federal unemployment to $400 a week and extending it until September. He's extending the foreclosure and eviction protections also until the end of September. That's what he wants to do. $350 billion for state and local government aid, $50 billion towards COVID testing. And this is kind of like what I don't really understand, I guess. Listen to this, right? So he wants to do $20 billion towards vaccination programs, which, when you think about it, if you get everyone vaccinated, because the vaccinations are effective, right, 95+% effective, the Pfizer vaccine, that would mean that the more that become vaccinated, the more people that could go to work, means the less money the government has to shell out in aid because Americans are back to work. But instead, he puts only $20 billion towards the vaccination programs, but then turns around and ups increases the child tax credit from $2,000 per child to $3,000 per child and $3,600 per child under the age of 6 years old. So he's giving $1,400 to Americans and then increasing child tax credits for Americans. But the one thing that would actually put Americans back to work, he invests very, very little money into it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. All right, so that is the Democrats' plan. And how do the Republicans respond? Because this is actually the key part, is because they're going to have to either come to some kind of bipartisanship or just ram through the legislation that they want. However, you still have the filibuster inside the Senate, so that will be very, very interesting to see how that works. Anyway, this is what the Republicans have. So they want stimulus checks of $1,000 compared to $1,400, tapering off at the $40,000 mark instead of the $75,000 mark, like income, which I don't think is a bad thing, right? Like, honestly, let's be honest with each other, okay? You be honest, I'll be honest, and maybe if enough of us are honest, maybe the people in Washington will hear us. If you're making $75,000 a year, you do not need a $1,400 stimulus. Been saying this since day one of the stimulus. If you didn't lose your job and you're still making money and you're still going to work and still living your life as normal, then you don't need a stimulus at all, right? The stimulus should be reserved for those that were actually adversely impacted by COVID instead of just blanket spreading money that the U.S. government doesn't have, right? They also want a $300 a week unemployment benefit compared to his $400 a week. They also wanted, here, I don't agree with this. I'm going to just be honest right here, right? So the Republicans wanted to direct only $20 billion towards K through 12 schooling instead, right? Which I'm not too sure I agree with. But those are the three key ticket items on the Republican side, right? Is they don't want those large stimulus checks. They don't want this large unemployment benefits. And they don't want a $170 billion going towards K through 12 schools. Now, with all of that said, I'm not going to lie. When you look at the two sides, right? Oh, well, let me rewind. The Republicans, all the rest of it, so the eviction protections, right? Increasing the child tax credit. None of that really was off the table for them. But these were the three ticket item responses to the Democrats' huge COVID relief bill. And with all that being said, when you look at the Democrats' bill, it's appeasing. It really, really does look good to the eye. I cannot lie about that. You look at that and be like, you're going to give all this money to local governments, to schools, to COVID testing, to COVID vaccines, blah, 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 right? That sounds really, really good. Two issues. One, it doesn't address the root of the issue, right? Which is the fact that Americans aren't working. Nothing in there besides the COVID vaccination and maybe the money for schools really put Americans back to work. Because obviously if you put in $170 billion towards schools, that'll pay for teachers, hopefully better setup so children can go back to school. But when you really think about it, nothing in that addresses the root of the issue. If you want to have the government stop spending money and stop having these huge expenditures for COVID relief and stop making them having to make these relief bills in the first place, then address the root of the issue. And that's putting Americans back to work, opening the U.S. economy, and letting American ingenuity do what it does best. And that's create things, create economy, and spend money. That is how we put our world back to normal. So first, the Democrats' plan does not do that. Does not address those key issues. Secondly, where does this money come from, right? That is billions and billions and billions of dollars that we are not anywhere near able to shell out. We just don't have the money. like, with an increasing government debt, where are we going to find the money to fund all of this? Like, it's just being shelled out and we're not thinking about that. This is a public policy nightmare, and the Democrats are being incredibly short-sighted when just looking at all of that money without figuring out how to address the root of the issue. And we can see this exact same argument being made by Senator Bill Cassidy. He made an argument citing that the Congressional Budget Office report stated that the economy will bounce back this year and have a positive economic outlook. To be even more specific, the CBO states that there'll be a real GDP growth of 3.7% in 2021, with a GDP growth of 2.6% over the next 5 years. The unemployment rate will fall to 5.3% in 2021 and further to 4% between 2024 and 2025. Inflation will rise to 2% after 2023. The Federal Reserve will start to hike federal fund rates in mid-2024 and has an upgraded economic outlook through 2025. So why would you not be addressing the root of the issues? Why would you want to keep spending all this money when the economy on the path that it's on now is going to recover? Focus money on vaccinations. Focus money on getting Americans back to work, and a lot of our issues will fix itself. Unemployment will go away. The need for huge SNAP programs and welfare programs will go away because Americans will be working again, right? You won't have to worry about triple P protection loans for small businesses, right? So paycheck protection loans, so they can actually pay their employees. You won't have to worry about that because they'll be making business again because the economy will be open. I do not think that the president has done well so far in, one, COVID, and two, healing America. And this is clearly seen in the enormous amounts of executive orders that he's just enacted. Instead of reaching across the aisle and allowing legislators to legislate laws bipartisanly, he's just stroked the pen, just legislating laws. Just, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And many of these orders are stripping orders of the previous administration that millions of Americans agreed with, right? So it's very, very difficult to say that you're bridging the gaps and mending and healing America when you're not doing anything but the exact opposite. You cannot gain unity out of control. And I think that is what they're trying to do. And it's something that we see all too often from the left, right? There can only be unity if you agree with them. If you disagree with them, they will have no unity. You're absolutely wrong, and you're a tyrant and a threat to their institutions, right? To them, there can be no unity if you disagree. And that's just, I think that is a problem that we're seeing right now, is that instead of trying to speak across the aisle, the president is just signing and enacting, like I said, this big, every other president, this big executive orders first week. President Biden, this big executive orders, right? It's just crazy, and it just does not scream unity and healing to the Republican half of America. And so for all of you wanting to know where that next stimmy is going to be at, well, I wouldn't get your hopes up. I wouldn't look for that next stimulus if it does pass till after probably the end of February, beginning of March, because you figure they were supposed to have a vote Tuesday. When looking at their legislative schedule and things like that, Congress closed today, recessing until tomorrow at about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2nd. And they're not meant to open until Wednesday. So they were supposed to take some kind of vote on that COVID relief bill today, but that just didn't happen. And so I don't think that we will see anything with COVID relief until the end of February, because it has to make it through the House, and then it has to make it through the Senate, where you're going to assume that a Republican senator will filibuster the bill and send it back. I think that's what we can expect to see if we don't see any bipartisan support or President Biden reaching across the aisle and making some concessions to the Republican Party and what they want in the COVID relief bill. All right, guys, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button, tap, smack, scrape, whatever you want to do to that subscribe button. I'll be posting more videos like this, kind of shorter ones compared to a normal podcast length video on hot button items inside politics. So if you have any videos that you want to see, anything that you have questions about, let me know down in the comments, guys. And as always, stay safe and God bless.